Hi again. It's Maya from Scala I here. Let's go to the next talk. Meet Krzysztof Romanowski, who is definitely crazy in love with Scala I. Krzysztof will show how he plays with Scala I using his smart home. He's also responsible for building a specialized Scala I team at Virtus Lab company. Krzysztof, we answer all of your questions at the end of the talk during the Q&A session. Krzysztof, you can start.
So today I'm going to talk to you about how I use Scala and everything to play with my home. So welcome to the Sweet Home Scala 3 talk. My name is Krzysztof and I'm working at Virtus Lab. This is a pair of socks I get this Christmas from my company. So as you can see here, it's quite nice, but I'm not showing like I like this. This is the picture. The funny version of the picture I'm showing everywhere in the internet, or at least I tried. But there's also the other side. It says literally in Polish like, "Daddy, make this Scala, please." So why it's that? Because since July last year, we partner with Martin and his team, in building a support for Scala 3, working together. And in the near future, Virtus Lab will offer commercial support, training, certification, everything that you may expect, dedicated for Scala 3. And what's my role? I'm the one responsible for all of that things in the Virtus Lab. So there's quite a lot of responsibility on me here, but also quite a lot of fun. And this is one of my dreams that comes true. Basically, I always wanted to work with Scala and work like on Scala as a language. Yeah, that is exactly what I wanted like 10 years ago when I found Scala somewhere and I fell in love in it. So the area that we contributed mostly there is Scala doc, or Scala 3 doc as it used to be known. And so basically this was like a first big project that we was like heavily involved around Scala. The tool is there, like it will be shipped under the Scala doc, that good old Scala doc as we know from years on now on, will be shipped with the next version. That maybe will be soon. I don't know. I mean, I know, but I cannot tell you. I think I will leave that to maybe you will listen about it later on. Yeah. So that's the Scala part of this talk. So there is also a part about Sweet Home. So this thing here is a hub from Philips Hue. This is like the quite old thing. We bought it like a few years back, and the reason was simple. You just do not want to get up from bed to turn on the light. It was like one of the presents that we gave like I gave my wife a long time ago, and she was really happy, and it served as well. So, okay, changing the lights using a smartphone. Is it a smart home or not? I don't know. This is where we started. It was serving us for years, and we don't need to change it. But there's like this last year, there's two reasons appear why you want to make our home even smarter. So on the right, you can see light switches, and there's two of them. Why is that? Because like our son is growing up and he's becoming like, we want to make him more and more, so he don't need to ask us for anything, so we can go, for example, to bathroom. But he's not able to turn the light on because the light is like way too high. So we want to have like the second light switch that he will be able to reach. So this is shown on the picture on the right. And also around bathroom, there is on the left, there is like we used to have like a robot vacuum for years. It was like super cool. But like the last year, we bought the mopping machine as well. And those are from different brands. And the problem is that they do not speak to each other. And we pick like the vacuum was one of the things that we got, and we got it for years. We don't want to change it. Like why throw away perfectly working device? But there is no other option for the like what we have. So we need to get two different brands, and it like quite quickly shown that we are like super happy with their performance. However, like we want to work them so they work together. So first the vacuum should go clean the house, and then the mopping machine should get and mop the clean the floor that was cleaned earlier by vacuum. And like there was also a few other things, but there was like two main drivers that I was looking for like a better solution. So there was like if then that. There's other various smart home platforms like Google or Amazon that pretty much everybody are using right now. But I kind of don't like the idea that I'm sending all of my data, that this kind of big corporations are coming into my home. I want it to be my home, so I want to like be quite a lot of privacy. And this is where I found the Home Assistant. Home Assistant is open source application. There is a small company that drives and manages it, some kind of like small pay subscription if you want some extra features, but it's basically driven by a community. It has like amazing community. So there's quite a lot of open source plugins, extensions, integrations. The home community is super helpful. So when I found it, there was like other idea, other like, alternative, but I just felt like at home, as we are in the Scala community. So I just stick to it. And after a few months of using it, I'm pretty happy with it. So it was like, I think it's quite a good choice. This is really mature and give you quite powerful things. So I've just installed it, as you can see here. So that's temporarily placed, but the things that are made just for a few weeks are usually permanent. But this is like the Raspberry Pi that drives it. There is like some relays that you will hear in a minute. There is some other things there. And there is a dashboard. As you can see, I took the snapshot yesterday, and it was quite cold outside in Poland. And the air was not good. The winter is not nice here. Yeah, but you will set something like this. You got all the switches on the lights and everything working, but that's not a smart home. That's basically you got a like really nice remote. What actually make your home smart is set of automations. So basically the rules, the scripts that drives different things in your home to work together. And Home Assistant brings really nice way to define the automation, especially that is not like, it's sort of hard to set up some things, especially more advanced things. Basic stuff just works, but it's not aimed for people that can program. So that is why they got this kind of visual builder, as you can see here on the screen. And it's really nice for small things. Like this is actually this is a screen from my configuration where one of the buttons, the remote buttons control the light in the bathroom. That is driven by the kind of remote switch that sits under the normal switch in the box in the wall. And for this kind of usages, they are completely perfectly fine. But there's also this kind of simple automation are not good enough for most of for me at least. I mean, I want to have more advanced stuff, more, especially the thing that I really was not so easy to do was that I was not able to reuse the automations quite easily. I mean, I could do it, but it's still like reusing and it's completely dynamic. There is no type safety, nothing like that I'm used to. So that was a bit of a problem for me. And tracking the state in the Home Assistant with this kind of style of automation is not perfect because then you have to set up some kind of entry in the configuration. So it's basically global immutable state that is defined within different things. So yeah, this is like not the most convenient thing to work with. There are other options within the Home Assistant, and that's you can actually write your Python scripts or just scripts using this kind of UI. But still, it's pretty much the same because the scripts or groupings are basically generalized way how the automation works. And what you got in Python is kind of limited sandbox. So we don't, for example, you cannot do if things like delays or reschedule, stuff like that. It's not good enough. So there is the same solution that everybody is using because this is not only me that has this problem. It's called Node-RED. This is not related to Home Assistant, but Home Assistant is integrated with it. So Home-RED is a tool to actually write this kind of automation flows where you can define entries, when you can define filters, when you can define endpoints, and in the middle, like glue it with either like using UI or JavaScript. And this is how I should do it, how I should automate my home, because this is what people are using. There's a lot of community examples, a lot of people that are willing to help, but I was not actually convinced I want to spend my time learning a new tool that is using GUI interface, like the visual interface and JavaScript. And I'm at home right now. I need to make sensible decisions because like I'm a parent, so you cannot make crazy things. it works the same because I'm not longer like, a developer that like if he's doing something crazy, like the manager will tell him stop, or like the team lead. I'm actually leading people, and so I'm the one supposed to tell people that they are not doing crazy stuff in their work. So why not do something crazy as my pet project? And instead of using well-defined things, do it in the 1 week and move on. Try to implement something new in Scala 3. And for me, I was looking for this kind of project for a while that will be like semi-production usage. So it will be an application that will be used to be the library, but will drive something. It will integrate with services that you are not control and you need to work what is there. And at the same time, you just don't want to like you can do an open source library, but this is a bit different developing. I want to have something like this, and this project, it really fits my needs. There's actually a lot of communication. There was also quite a lot of things that related to working with WebSockets, JSONs, this kind of stuff. Yeah, so we just go with it. And this is why I'm talking to you right now about how I use Scala 3 actually to drive the home automations in my home. In my flat, actually, I'm living in a flat, so there's quite a limited options what you can have here. So just to set up the goals before I move forward. So I want to use Scala 3 or Java. I do not want to depend on Java 2 libraries, mainly because I do not want to like start working with something and then discover that there is a macro somewhere that breaks everything. And also I want to test if when I started, if the Scala 3 ecosystem right now is good enough for kind of application, let's say production applications. The main thing, I wanted to have fun. So if there is I'm faced with the decision, should I use some crazy things from Scala or do the way how it was done before, I will pick the first option. So I will do something crazy because I want to learn and experiment. So that's the first thing. And in terms of how the project should look like, so it should be quite easy to reuse and compose automation. The best solution will be if the automations are kind of data you can play with. So what we are used to in the FP world. This automation should be able to handle state. So I should be able to take quite easily within the automation that whenever like the button is pressed 3 times, then I want to do something. And if the between the presses is, or I want to like count the way how the button is pressed, and then if something else happens, I want to display this number. This of course makes no sense, but this is the kind of what kind of handling state I've got in mind. And I want it to be an application, not a library. So I do not aim to actually publish it anywhere. I do not want to be constrained. If I just want to do something nasty and ugly, I will just do it in one place because this is an application. Hopefully your application doesn't look like that, but yeah, if you are not creating a library, you can take some, or you can write like some kind of abstractions that are leaky in a few places if you don't have time. So this is maybe not a goal, but this is rather non-goal than goal. So my code don't need to be like perfectly nice. So then we will need to find a way how to communicate with Home Assistant. So I will use a Home Assistant here as a kind of hub that first will provide me with data about what's going on. And also I will use this, I will use it as well to drive other devices, like, turn the lights on or start the cleaning or something like that. And there are basically, I was considering, probably there is more, but I was considering like three different ways to actually integrate with the Home Assistant. First one is actually, there is a way to define the extension in Home Assistant, like integrations or stuff like that. And it uses Python, as you might imagine, and all of those extensions run in like Dockerized environment. So my plan, I was actually looking at this for a few hours, was to actually try to use Scala I with Scala 3 and build this kind of extension that will drive and expose things. And actually, it sounds really cool, but it will take quite a lot of work to actually, before I start doing the automations. And I want to do automations first. So maybe I'll revisit that and wrap everything I've got here into something like this, maybe not using Python because I don't need to use Python. I will get that in a minute, or just really think wrapper around Python, around the plugin Python and stuff. So the second option is MQTT. MQTT is the kind of queue protocol for IoT devices. So you don't expect quite a lot of traffic there, the messages should not be like quite long and so forth and so on. But this is the kind of protocol that allows button like this even to use it. So it's like designed for simple operations and low energy and computation needs. And there is the third option that probably you might not be able to see, right? Maybe you'll be able to see it better now. That's to use WebSockets and JSON. And this is the why I picked, because it will provide me quite a nice separation from all of this. And this is something I played with it in the past, so I do not need to spend time on the things that are not really related to building the automation and playing with Scala. So the JSON. Long time ago, like 2 or 3 years, I remember there was a Scala days where pretty much everyone brings their own JSON libraries. So we got like probably way too many JSON libraries. And when at the time when I actually, I was just, okay, I will go to the Scala Dex, select Scala 3 and pick the best JSON libraries. I like the name, whatever. And I was surprised because when I started doing it, the Scala 3 M3 was kind of fresh thing and there was not as many good libraries ported to Scala 3. So basically I was faced with a dilemma. So I can either like do probably a lot of work on parsing manually JSON or use the Scala 2 libraries like Spray.io, Spray JSON. But yeah, like let's maybe explore other options. So other option would be actually use some kind of the Java library to stick to my goal. So basically use a Json or whatever. And this is probably the same thing. This is what I should do. But in the end, I did what like the stereotypical Scala programmer will do. So basically I tried to use the language as I got as a tool to actually do something that was not there. So this is where JSON meets type class derivation. I don't know if you are familiar. I'm not going to deeply dive into the type class derivation, but this is like, I think it's really nice. This is not something that you probably should do on your application side. This should be done for sure in the libraries. I take my liberty and just implement it. So what I did, I implemented a derived JSON format that is basically a like really thing you will see in a second wrapper under JSON format from Spray JSON. And add a few things here. I will talk about that in a minute. And I'm able to actually work with the messages that Home Assistant is saying to me. It's like authentication, results, services, events, this kind of stuff. So yeah, let me show how I did it. So basically working with the type class derivation is covering 2 cases. So you need to cover sum of elements like case and entering enum or classes or objects that extends the field trait. And the other thing is mirror of product of, sorry. That is basically a case class tuple. You can think of it as actual thing that contains data. And like there's a quite good quite a good documentation entry on the .eu website how to work with type class derivation. Like I think half of the code or more is basically copied from there. So if you want to start, I strongly suggest to go there. But and I'm not going to like deep dive into how it's working on. But I want to focus what I added on top of that, because adding a basic thing is quite simple. So just add this kind of given here that basically maps JSON format to derived JSON format. That given that where you got derived JSON format, you got the JSON format. So givens are like implicits for Scala true. So basically, whenever somebody needs JSON format that got derived, it will be converted to JSON format and vice versa. And yeah, and you're good to go. However, it will not work because you need to somehow, when you got, let's say, an enum like here, you need to somehow find like you got the JSON that contains a message. So basically a JSON with message. And you are not able to easily tell how to, what kind of instance of enum it should be mapped to. So in that case, there is a kind of simple, this is how, it's probably the simplest way to implement it, probably not the most efficient. It's actually to have dedicated field that drives the type. And yeah, I could just do it. Basically here, I would just need to get a kind, and if the kind is there, get a name from all of the names of all of the products that are under the hood. And based on that, use kind of nasty casting, because this is the way how you need to do it, and pick the instance. So basically a type class from all of the type classes that you generated for all of the products. And yeah, I could do it, but as you can see here, there is like nothing like that here. How I work around? There is this custom JSON field name. So I just introduce a type. It's here. That got a string. It have nothing else. And then I got this fallback member extractor that is a multi-type, really powerful thing in the Scala tree that basically checks whenever the thing that you are passing here is derived JSON kind. This is really similar. So it just checks whether you got custom JSON field name. If it's true, it will just extract the string. So it will return the literal type, because it all works with type, that matches the name of the field that you want to use, or like pick some kind of default. And on top, what I'm doing here to get a kind is basically I'm getting the where is it? Getting the const value, as you can see here. And there is also a fallback one. I'm not going to deeply dive into it, so this is not a really nice one, but this basically says that if the type that is passed, so in this case, like, there's quite a lot of other events I didn't want to like list there, and commas and sometimes send them. It will be just mapped to the unknown. Sorry, it will be just mapped to the unknown, and with the JSON there. So yeah, we got the JSON. So now what we need to do? We need to connect, and we need to work with Home Assistant. And this is actually when the first time I found that the documentation is not exactly reflects the reality, as it's probably with many cases. This is the same with business requirements and everything else. So it says that you need to connect. You can do this kind of sequentially send some messages. So they will send you the out require message. Then you need to provide the authentication token. Then you need to send. They will tell you if the out is okay or not, and then you can do stuff. And then you can send messages. And this is like completely asynchronous communication. So there is no like intermediate responses. I mean, it would be hard to actually. WebSockets is just messages that come in one way or another. So what it has is actually, if you want to get the response from a message, you need to add the ID, and basically you always need to add the ID to the like any kind of calls that you send to the instance, to the Home Assistant. And at some point, whenever it computes the computation, it will give you back the message with the same ID. And they just use it, okay, ID. So I just pick UIDs or random int, and I was able to send just one message. After that, it was crashing. And then I discovered that those messages need to be sequential. So basically, each new event needs to have it should not be string, it should be like string that maps to int, that with the higher value. So this is where the steps actually started, and I just need to make my code a little bit more advanced and used counters and in order to implement this kind of synchronous way, I also need to build up the queue of messages that are being sent and waiting for response. So it's basically here. So I'm having the callback with each message I want to wait. And whenever this like matching message is received, then I'll just call the callback. You probably would guess right now that I'm using Zio here, but I'm not using anything like really specific to Zio. I'm using tasks in most cases, so it pretty much can be any kind of effect system. I wanted to use Zio because it, like the last effect heavy system I was building I was using Zio then. So I just wanted to see if there is like any kind of difference between Scala 2 and Scala 3. And so far, they are pretty much the same from the point of using Zio. I mean, you can build other better things with Scala 3, but from like using the library, nothing changed. So it was like really good. Okay, and like on the handling message, there is also nothing surprising on that side. Basically, whenever the message is with matching the ID, I call the callback. If not, I'm handling the message in default way. So basically, I'm offering messages into the queue. And this leaves us with how the application is laid out. I also need to move it a bit. Here is some place. So I'm talking with Home Assistant using JSON that all go to the WebSocket, and WebSocket exposes like message queue to the rest of the system. And it also can accept like any kind of JSON that can be sent further down to the Home Assistant. In my initial design, I do not include any queues, and it was like callback hell, and it was like so messy. I rewrite it into the queues, and I probably deleted like half of the code. So then we got the piece that works around the communication with Home Assistant. So handles like top level logic on top of WebSockets, and also it handles the synchronous communication, asynchronous communication, initial setting up of connection, everything there. And it also exposes event queue with events and the events are abstract to the Home Assistant in most cases. There is one case I hacked a bit. I probably should remove it, I think, later on. But in general, it should be completely abstract from what is under the hood. And also, there is a way that the Hasher can call other stuff under the hood. Basically, there is a way to call services. Services is like the pieces that run stuff application, and like you can turn the light on with a service, the Home Assistant. So basically, this is like a call, is like abstraction on top of that can be sent from engine into the communication. But actually, it's not even from the engine; it's from the automation itself, because engine itself does not drive any automations. It just parses stuff and triggers some of the automations. And there is nothing that blocks me at this moment to actually accept events from other sources, also sources like the REST call from somewhere or local applications. And I'm also using it a bit in my application. So let's see how it works under the hood. So how I map the application and how it's working. So yeah, sorry, the automation, because this is like the most interesting, I think, part of the whole thing. So the automation is simple case class. It just contains name, it contains trigger, and it contains action. Before I'm going to how action works, I want to talk about triggers. So triggers are even simpler. So basically, it is simple trait that react on event and provides a reaction. And reaction is it's kind of three-state entry. Basically, you can go, which means that the trigger wants to do something. So when you got a trigger that listen on the button press, when you press the button, this trigger should produce go with something, depending on how we define the trigger. And all of those reactions, as well as value in the case of go to the next trigger. And this is the way how the state is handled. So basically, trigger itself contains the state that it's on, and it's not mutable. So basically, every time you do something with that automation, we will just get a new trigger. And there is pass and off. So that makes everything a little bit more complicated, but I needed it to have, because pass is whenever, okay, I'm listening for a button press and there is an event that the light is on. So I will just call pass because it's not something I want. But you can also do a pass and abate the states. And this is really useful when you aggregate a lot of triggers. So we'll see that later on. And there is off that says, okay, I was listening to the light being on, but the light is off. So so I want to notify that it's my event, but I'm not interested in it. This is not matching my goals. And this is especially used, for example, when you do a filter. So basically, when we go and we want to check if it matches our condition. If it matches, then we want to go. And if not, we just want to go off. So coming back to automation then got this thing. As you can see, there is a bucket compiler that helps me, because I really want to use T here, because this is what I want. However, when you got case class that got a context function, it breaks compile. I mean, if I remove case class here, or this would be like a normal function, it will work. So why I wanted context function? Because in the actions, I want to, for example, implement restart or continue. So basically, do not do any kind of new here. Sorry, I should come back and tell what this action is. So whenever the trigger is go, we will call the action. So it is when you got the trigger that under certain conditions, I don't know, something will happen. The action is the part that actually happens. So in the action, you call a state. And as you can see, that thing here is represented by an action, it's like automation action, but I wanted to make it shorter. And then this reaction can be new state, so new automation, usually one, usually the same, that continues, yeah. And actions, so actions are completely abstract. Automation engine does not want to know anything about actions. It just wants to play with trigger and automation. Okay, yeah, so I probably should come back to the derivation. Yeah, let's go with let's go quickly recap the automation. So this is the automation that you hopefully can see now. Just want to be sure. Can you see the highlighted automation?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, that's the kind of action I was talking a lot. That's the trigger, and this is the reaction. That's it's either go, pass, or off. And the trigger, as you can see, based on event that was coming from the queue, it will react to different stuff. And the trigger actually produces the next trigger that handles states. And this is like this tree, so pass and off are pretty much the same. So all of them got next trigger, and go got a value that the trigger is being triggered on. So for example, if you've got a sensor that you want to, like every time it's updated, you want to do something, the value will be like the reading of that sensor. And you can combine all of these things and actually produce a trigger, like zip to triggers, and get trigger that contains a tuple or stuff like that. You will see that more in the further down the road. And yeah, and there is the action that based on the go, just ignore this part for a second. Based on the go, so basically the trigger is on, it drives an a action that's basically automation action that produces a new automation, usually the same one, and actions that will be run, and some effects will be observed. So yeah, why I'm using here that things that broke the compilation, because I face a problem. I wanted to be able to restart the automation and get an access to the name, the original trigger. So I wanted to do the restart. This is the reason why I got here. So I wanted to start the automation starting with the original triggers, the state as they was when the automation was created. And when you want to define this as a case class, not like abstract class, there is pretty much not a good way to do it. Other than use this kind of to make this function accepting 2 arguments. But at the same time, like half of, or maybe more of my use cases does not care. They just want to start with go and produce an action because they want to do something else. And this is where this is really handy, this context function, because it allows you to pass either a context function that will take automation or a normal function that will just ignore it. This is a really neat feature. I'm really sad that there is a bug in compiler here that is not able to, I'm not able to use T, but I'm pretty sure it will be fixed in the stable release or sometime close. So now we will need to go to other screen. So I need to stop sharing. And now I really want to share you my screen. You might ask yourself, like, how do you want to share your screen, but you are sharing your screen? You'll see in a second. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see my screen, and this is a demo time. So I want to code at the same time as showing what's going on under the hood. So few components. I've got here a light. This is like a light strip. There is a button. Hopefully it will work because it sometimes breaks. And there is a light sensor here. And let's automate these things. So first, what we want to do, we want to be able to, on the press of the button, actually turn the light on or off. So basically toggle the light. So I've got the trigger here that is based on string that is a state that's coming from, this is ID using Home Assistant. And whenever its value changes, then and the action is pressed. So whenever I press on the press action, I want to do something with it. And in that case, I just want to toggle the light. So let's run it. There might be some blinking lights. So I just want to warn you. Okay, let's see if it works. It works. So yeah, that's the simple thing here. Need to one thing under the hood. Okay. You see some blinking lights. Sorry, please ignore it. And yeah, so we got it working. Now we want to do something more serious. So we want to detect that the light is low. So again, we got a string sensor. Home Assistant usually sends everything, data from all of the sensor as a strings. That's not convenient, but yeah, what we can do. I could map it over it, but I just keep it simple here with filter because I'm not using, besides this condition, I'm not using the value as ints. I'm using it as the strings. So I got the sensor, then I filter. Since it's a state, the state gives me some information about like where the state was pressed, what was the what is the ID and everything of the entity. It's very useful for when you combine quite a lot of states. So I need to extract a value from that event, check to int, and set if it's like below like 30 luxes. And then we got automation. So I got two automations here based on that trigger. So as you can see, I'm able quite easily to reuse the triggers. I can combine and change them, and they just work because they are just purely functional, and they got quite nice API to work with. So yeah, first, whenever the light is low, I want to like lock in the console the value of the light, and when the light is off, so basically when off is like it changes the trigger. So basically it reverses it, but not reverses in the way. So every time the value that this produces is go will be changed to off, and every time the value is off, it will be changed to go. The past will be just ignored. And then if the light is okay, I want to just do it. So let me cancel that and let me start the application again. There is some blinking. Please ignore that for now. And as you can see now, the light is okay. So now when I cover the sensor, you will be able that their light is low. When I uncovers, the light will be back to okay. It's like it's sending the events every time, like the Home Assistant send the events every time the lights change. So whenever to see a new value, I will need to actually do something in front of it, so just to change the value. Yeah, we got the basic stuff working, and now let's come to the advanced, because those things I can do quite easily without the Home Assistant, without the code I'm showing here. So what I want to do here is, like, I don't want to sit in the dark when I'm coding. So I want to have a notification, but on the same time, I don't want the light to automatically turn on when the light is low, when the computer is on. I will just ignore the computer is on for now. But I want to get notification, and I want to be able to just ignore the notification. So sometimes I want to sit in the dark. I don't know, my son is going to sleep, and the flat needs to be dark, and I need to code. So what do you want to do here? So we want to have the, first we got the light notification. That is basically handles the state of notification. It will be populated under the hood by the state of notification will be either off, either shown, ignore, or okay. You will see here, yes. And then there is a few more triggers I need to define. So first, the second one is the light is off. I don't want to turn the light when the light is already on. I want to, this makes no sense. So let's define the condition where the notification can be shown. So it can be turned on. So basically light is off, and the notification is not shown and is not ignored. So basically only a notification is not shown, it is not ignored. So basically it's like in the limbo state that there is no notification around. And then we got our complete trigger to turn the lights on, as you expect, when the light is low, and only if we can turn all of these lights, only if makes it will only the trigger will only goes if the trigger defined here is in the last run that it was, not the it was go, not off. So the passes will be ignored. So it basically we can define the conditions like the way. And there is this change needed. So basically we'll track the last value that is reported and only go when the values actually changes. Because of the way how we go, if there is no this change at the end, I will get a notification every time either low light or can then light on will change. But I'm ignoring this piece in terms of value, so that's why I need to change here. And this is our notification. This is our automation. So basically, when we got turn the light trigger on, then we want to send notification. And when the light notification is okay, so we want to turn the light on. So let me start it again. So, okay, it's good. Let's see if it's working. As you can see here now, when I cover the light, I will get notification. It might be hard to read it. Maybe it will be better here. But it basically reads that should I turn the light on? Okay, I want to turn the light on, and the light are on. And then I want to turn off the light. So just use the button. And again, the light falls down. Do you want to turn the light on? No, I want to ignore it. Nothing happened. And now you need to pay attention to the console. When I cover the light, it reports the new value that is low, but no notification is being shown. And the last piece of the demo would be, you probably notice quite a lot of light blinking. I wish I can ask the audience right now what's going on. I do not have a view on the chat, but maybe you can do a bet. I'll give you a minute. So what was that? Then I will check it and just, yeah. So I hope that somebody guessed by those light in the back is connected to the compiler. Actually SBT in that case. So I got something bad here. Whenever I rerun it, as you can see, it started blinking red. This is a fun thing that you can do with it. And I said that I will not make it a library out of it. Actually, for this piece, there is another instance running in the background that shows that they can be just completely separated and is listening to the events that are produced by the compiler and react to it by changing the RGB light under the screen. Okay. So yeah, that is all I've got here. I'm not sure if we got a time for a question or we should continue in the spatial chat.